Good evening, everyone. My name is Daronka McLeod. Today I will be talking to you about the educational law. This podcast is going to give an overview and explain the importance of knowing about school law, politics, and ethics. I will synthesize two case studies and the implications for teachers or students. In my synthesis, I will give my audience the titles and authors of the case studies. It will have a summary of the purpose of the case studies. I will describe the major themes or implications of the case studies. I will discuss how the major themes or an implication impact teachers or students. I will share how applicable laws, politics, ethics, and resources from my educational law toolbox relate to or connect to the case studies. I will develop my own or describe an existing policy that outlines the rights and responsibilities of schools, public child care centers, and as well as employees and students. I will give the title of the policy, the purpose of the policy, excuse me. I will compose the steps or process for following or adhering to the new or existing policy. I will assess how the policy impacts those that are affected and may lead to educational transformation or social justice. And I will relate what I have learned about law, politics, and ethics. In my case studies that I have selected or developed policy, I will describe 5 resources that can be used to draw from for more information about law, politics, and ethics. As they pertain to my topic, I will explain why I chose these resources and how it can help support my policy. Therefore, I will conclude this podcast with a reflection on how my toolbox, the knowledge from the case studies synthesized, and my creation of a new or review of an existing policy that can help me in my professional setting. That means including advocating for educational transformation or social justice. The importance of understanding law, politics, and ethics. Case studies synthesis. Table 1. My first case study is Discrimination or Background Knowledge, Part 1. Arthur Strider, D.L., 2013. The purpose of this case study is to prepare administrators to handle complex situations involving legal, compliance, and student discipline. It is a tool the teachers teaches educators and administrators to analyze the educational law, student rights, and ethics. It shows particular concerns about disciplinary actions in special education strata. The major theme of this case study is to focus on legal and ethical decision making in educational leadership and is especially addressing the potential discrimination and the proper use of student information. This case study relates to the laws, politics, ethics, and resources of my educational toolbox by identifying the students' rights and protection against discrimination. My next case study is titled Search of Student Property and Person. It doesn't have a citation. The purpose of this case study is to help students to analyze the legal and ethical considerations that are surrounding a student search in school. That means that they must have a balance of their safety and rights. This is a challenge of critical thinking to decide how to apply the legal standard of reasonable suspicion rather than probable cause. I'm sorry. The complex balance between students' Fourth Amendment right to privacy and the need for school officials to maintain a safe and orderly learning environment. The case study relates to the laws, politics, ethics, and resources of my educational toolbox by identifying students' Fourth Amendment rights to privacy, and it will help to identify why school officials have probable cause to search students' personal belongings in school. Rights and Responsibilities Policy. Policy, title, and author. Kitty College Learning Center Discrimination and Harassment Policy. The policy purpose. Kitty College LLC is committed to providing an environment free from all forms of discrimination and harassment in all of its programs, activities, and employment decisions. This policy applies to all students, employees, and activities at Kitty College Learning Center. Retaliation against any individual who reports discrimination or participates in an investigation is strictly prohibited. And I received this off of Google. It helped me form a template so I can form my own discrimination and harassment policy. The applicable law, politics, and or ethics. The law that is applicable to this policy is the Title 9, Protection Against Discrimination. The steps or process of the policy. Kitty College Learning Center has the responsibility to ensure that the educational activities, programs, and employment decisions are based on qualifications and individual abilities. They have the responsibility to promptly investigate all complaints of harassment and discrimination, to take the appropriate corrective action if a policy violation is found, and to ensure a prompt and equitable resolution. They have the responsibility to maintain a learning and working environment that is free of all forms of harassment and discrimination. Employees must comply with this policy in all interactions with colleagues, students, and families. The responsibility to treat all students and colleagues with respect and not engage in any form of discrimination or harassment. They have the responsibility to cooperate with any investigation into a complaint, and they also have the responsibility to report any discrimination or harassment that they witness or experience without fear of retaliation. Students are responsible to treat all members of the center community with respect, regardless of their characteristics or background. Students have responsibility to report any incidents or harassment or discrimination to a designated child care center official. They have the responsibility to refrain from engaging in any discriminatory or harassment behavior. impact of policy on others, and educational transformation or social justice. The policy that I chose impacts the students, families, and staff by creating a safe environment for their effectiveness in achieving social justice and educational transformation, which depends on the proper implementation and enforcement. As for the staff, these policies will improve retention and being. As for the families, this policy will provide a clear foundation to address my concerns. And as for students, this policy is great for the well-being and academic progress. The 5 resources that can be used to draw from more information about the law, politics, and ethics as they pertain to my discrimination and harassment policy. The first resource is the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, EEOC. It is a website and guidance document. I chose this resource because it is essential for understanding our legal rights obligation as an employee. EEOC ND. It can help support my policy by enforcing laws that make workplace harassment and discrimination illegal. EEOC ND. The next resource that I chose is National Association for the Education of Young Children, Code of Ethical Conduct and Statement of Commitment, because this resource will ensure that my policy will align with professional ethics in the child care field, and it will support my policy by outlining the responsibilities to the families, children, community, and colleagues. It will provide a strong ethical framework for my policy by addressing principles of inclusion, the commitment to not harm children, and diversity. NAEYC ND. The third resource that I chose is the State Specific Child Care Licensing Regulations and Website, because it has a state mandated non-discrimination or anti-harassment policy that all child care centers must follow. And it supports my policy because it sets the baseline of legal requirements for operating a child care facility. Florida DCF. The fourth resource that I chose is the Administration for Children and Families, ACF, and I chose this resource because it will inform my policy by offering guidance on the federal laws that are related to child welfare, and it will be supportive of my policy by offering resources to help with the compliance of the policy, and it will provide the guidance on federal civil rights, ACF 2025. The last resource I chose is the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, Office for Civil Rights, OCR, guidance, because it will help service the aspects of my center's policy, and it will support my policy by focusing on the federal funding requirements, the law and non-discrimination in the services for the children and families, HHS OCR ND. In conclusion, my toolbox, the knowledge from the case study synthesis, and my policy can help my professional setting by allowing me to identify the laws, politics, and ethics in my program. I will be able to apply my discrimination policy to my professional setting to inform my staff, families, and students that there will be no discrimination or harassment tolerated in my program. And I will use the examples of my case studies to help me to explain to my staff that we cannot search any child without probable cause, and we must always contact the families to inform them of why the search wasn't performed. The toolbox will be my guidance to help me stay informed of the laws, politics, and ethics in the school system, in the school or centers. This information would help my professional setting operate successfully by staying in compliance with the laws set for school/childcare. I will sign the necessary petitions and advocate for the probable cause of my family, children, and colleagues. Therefore, this information will help me to advocate for my family, children, and colleagues in my community and program. Thank you. And the references that I have is the Administration for Children and Families, ACF 2025, January the 2nd, Administrative and National Policy Requirements, Florida Department of Children and Families, ND, Child Care Laws and Requirements, National Association for the Education of Young Children, Code of Ethical Conduct, Statement of Commitment, and U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, Office of Civil Rights, OCR Guidance, no date. U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, EEOC, no date. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed my podcast.